everybody. This is Neil, all the way from Australia, across the ditch. That's warmly welcome. And over to you, Neil.
Okay, thanks everybody. So today we're going to take a look at how we can solve the Elon Musk problem in Dataverse. If you're curious about that title and you're not quite sure what you're in for, I'll explain it in just a moment. My name is Neil Benson. I'm coming to you live from the Dataverse Research Labs here at Customary in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. So thank you very much, New Zealand, for hosting us. It's been a great summit so far. Thank you to the organizing team who put together another wonderful agenda and a very slick organization. I really appreciate it. So let's take I'm just having some fun with PowerPoint Live, trying to get it to present. But anyway, let's crack on. Elon Musk is a complicated character. If anybody's been following him in the news, it's kind of hard to avoid. He has got multiple businesses. Some of them change names more frequently than Microsoft products change their names. We've got Twitter, or X as it's now known, SpaceX, formerly at PayPal. He's the CEO of Tesla. I think he's the founder and still the CEO of the Boring Company. He is the head of the Musk Foundation. Formerly the CEO of Thud, which was a magazine in Los Angeles. He was one of the founders of OpenAI. He's a complicated character with a lot of relationships to a lot of organizations. And what I struggle with is how I would model somebody like Elon Musk in Dataverse. So that's really the crux of the problem, is how would you model somebody like Elon in Dataverse today? You might have seen similar challenges. It's probably not called the Elon Musk problem where you are, but I first encountered this problem 15 or so years ago, probably even before that, at an organization called the Royal Bank of Scotland. I was actually working for them in London in their small business banking deployment of Dynamics CRM. And we called it the entrepreneur problem back then because the main challenge was entrepreneurs who owned multiple businesses. They might own a window cleaning business and a dry cleaning business and a car washing business. How do you model somebody like that in Dataverse? And we've seen that time and again. People have multiple relationships with multiple organizations. Elon Musk has roles at multiple companies. That's the Elon Musk problem. We've seen company directors who have got roles on many boards. Philanthropists can have roles at many nonprofits. Bureaucrats or civil servants might have roles at multiple government agencies or departments. I've seen healthcare professionals with roles at multiple hospitals. You could be a surgeon practicing at 2 different clinics, for example. And we see it in teaching as well, where teachers might work part-time at different schools or different universities. Entrepreneurs own many businesses. I'm a little bit guilty of that. I run Customary as my online training and coaching business, and Superware as my independent software vendor business. A lot of you might be Microsoft partners with contacts or accounts, user accounts at multiple Microsoft customer organizations. You've got multiple tenants you log into. How would you model all of that in Dataverse? It's a bit of a challenge. Why is it a challenge? Well, because of the data model that we've got, the common data model, in which an account can have 0 or more contacts, and a contact can work for 0 or 1 accounts. And it's that 1 accounts that trips us up. In all of those scenarios, we want our contacts to have relationships with multiple accounts, but we can't do that in the common data model. I was chatting with a VP, actually the VP of Dataverse at Microsoft recently, called Nirav Shah. Nirav's a really nice guy, super smart. I was describing to him the presentation I was going to deliver called the Elon Musk problem. And he said, Neil, I'm really sorry. Like, what do you mean you're really sorry? You're going to kill my presentation? He said, no, I'm the guy who designed the data model. Back in 2002, Nirav was a program manager at Microsoft working on the initial version of Microsoft Business Solutions Customer Relationship Management 1.0 beta. So way back in 2001, 2002, when they were designing what we now know as the common data model, this was the data model that he signed off on. He designed it. And we've had to live with it for over 20 years. And it doesn't always suit our purposes. So if you ever bump into Nirav, ask him about the Elon Musk problem. In fact, Microsoft has, Nirav admitted to me, like he would love to solve the problem. And they have done some research into technical solutions or new architectural patterns that they could implement in Dataverse to free us from this constraint. The challenge is we've got 20 years of Dynamics Dataverses out there. So that's a lot of legacy architecture built on this data model that Microsoft would either have to change or probably give you an option for a new Dataverse to use a new common data model and leave the legacy data model behind, make sure that's stable and not changed, but give you an option to use a new enhanced common data model. The challenge with them would be servicing two different data models, and the complexity that brings up, not just for Microsoft, but all the ISVs that rely on the data model as well. So it's not an easy problem to solve for Microsoft. I imagine some of you have had to solve it for some of your implementations. Here are some considerations that you have to think about when you want to try and solve this problem to box your way out of the constraint. First of all, is the appearance of duplicates. How many Elon Musks do you want to have in your system? Some customers consider contact records to be people. There should only be one Elon Musk contact record because there's only one person who is Elon Musk. Others will say, look, I don't really think of contact records as people. I think of contact records like business cards. If Elon Musk had an old-fashioned wallet with old-fashioned business cards in it, he might have multiple business cards in there. And he'd give you a business card depending upon whether he was representing Tesla that day or SpaceX that day or X or whatever. And he might have a pile like I do of old business cards with places I used to work as well. So you'd have a PayPal one and a Thud one and some others as well. So how do you define a contact? Is a contact a person or is a contact more like a business card? And therefore, what do duplicates look like? Do you want to get a holistic view of the person? Is it important to you that you can see everything, every interaction with Elon Musk when you open up his record? Do you need to be able to see all the interactions with Elon as the chief executive of SpaceX and the chief executive of Tesla and the chief executive of X? Or maybe that's not so important to you. So what are your goals with regards to a single view of the person? Then we have to think of some of the first-party apps that integrate with Dataverse, Dynamics 365 customer insights journeys, for example, and other third-party marketing applications rely on a data model today. They're based on a contact record and sometimes a lead record. If we were to change our use of Dataverse and be a little bit more creative with it, what kind of problems would we cause for customer insights journeys or click dimensions or on target or some of those other marketing applications? And the Outlook integration as well, this Dynamics 365 app for Outlook synchronizes contact records in Outlook with contact records in Dataverse. How would that look if we changed how we used contact records in Dataverse? Would we break the Outlook app? That happened to one of my deployment where I was a user. And we'll touch on that option and see if it would break your implementation. And finally, there's another important consideration, another big integration consideration, and that's your ERP applications or any other kind of back office or third-party application that you're integrating Dynamics with. If you're integrating with Dynamics 365 Finance, for example, they treat contact records slightly differently than Dataverse, but the integration's been built. It's a standard pattern, and it's based on the known way that we're supposed to use contact records in Dataverse. If you change that, how are you going to affect your integration with your ERP system? You might have to do some customization around how back office or third-party integrations integrate with Dataverse. The rest of this session, I'd love to be more interactive. I appreciate there's 20 or 30 folks on the call. We're going to open it up for discussion. I'm going to show you 6 different ways of freeing yourself from these limitations. And love to get your feedback and thoughts. Maybe we'll do a Q&A at the end. Lynn, I think that might be easier with this number of people on the call. But if you want to raise your hand, Lynn, if you want to interrupt me and ask any important questions as we go along, that'd be welcome. And I'll take other questions at the end. So the options that we're going to look through, and I'm going to run through a slide of each one. Then I'll switch over into my browser and show you them live in the demo environment. These are the options I've evaluated over the last 15, 20 years as ways of boxing my way out of the Elon Musk problem. The first one we're going to look at is multiple contacts. It's just to say, hey, look, it's okay. We're going to treat Elon Musk like a business card, not as a person, and we're going to live with duplicate contacts that are all called Elon Musk. That's a really simple way of getting out of it. It kind of goes against the grain of some users who just want to shrink everything down to a single Elon Musk contact record. But if you redefine contacts as business cards, perhaps your users could live with it. The second way, and this is the way that almost every Dynamics consultant that leaps to, is connections. Let's use the connection intersect table to support a many-to-many relationship between accounts and contacts, with the connection record defining the relationship, chief executive or whatever it is, those kind of relationships. Third one we're going to look at is using a different table for the intersect entity. So we're still going to have many-to-many between accounts and contacts. The intersect entity in the middle is going to be a system table called the leads record, or the leads table. Slightly controversial. I think there's some things to like about this option. It's one of my preferred options. There are MVP friends of mine who will shout me down every day of the week. Is George Dubinsky on the call? Hope not. I think it's a perfectly valid option. I'd love to know what you think of it. Number 4 is a variation on that one. Instead of using leads as an intersect entity in between accounts and contacts, we're going to use a custom table. You can call it whatever you like. In this example, I think I've called it roles or employment positions or whatever. And essentially what you're looking at there is something that looks a little bit more like LinkedIn. In LinkedIn, you've got your person record. That's your LinkedIn profile. And then you've got multiple relationships with multiple account records. Those are company records in LinkedIn. And then the thing that connects them together is positions. So you can have a position at Dialogue, or you can have a position at DXC Technology, or you can have a position at Microsoft, or a position at X. And in LinkedIn, you can have a date, a job title, a job description associated with that position. We can do the same in Dataverse and have a more LinkedIn-like experience. Number 5 is another custom table, but this time we're going to treat the contact record to define somebody's job role. And we're going to create a new parental record for contacts called a person. And so a person can have many contacts, so those contacts represent their business cards. So a slight variation on the many-to-many relationship with an intersect table in the middle, but we're going to use contacts as the intersect table. It's quite a nice model as well. I think it works really well in lots of scenarios. And for me, it probably beats number 6, which is I've called the self-referential contact model, where you have 2 different contact types, a contact type called person and a contact type called contact. It's pretty messy, but I've seen it implemented by Microsoft Consulting Services, no less, and it's stuffed up deployment where I was the user. But yeah, I'll look at that later. All right, let's experiment. So before we do any kind of experiments, I want us to take reasonable safety precautions. So if you have at home, you have a lab coat, I'd encourage you to put it on now, just and maybe some safety goggles, if you have some safety goggles, just in case I cover you in any of my green goo as we run through some of these experiments. All right, first one up is multiple contacts. And I'll show you these in some live environments in just a moment. In this one, we've got lots of company records or account records for all the places where Elon Musk has had an association. Either he's been the founder, or he's worked there, or he's still working there. And we have got lots of contact records. So if I opened up a contact record, it'd be 14 of them. If I opened one up, it would be Elon Musk, give you a job title. He's got a different phone number at each of these organizations, different business phone number, different addresses, different email addresses, different job titles. So there are 14 distinct contact records. I don't know how he's got 14 different mobile phone numbers. Maybe Elon Musk has got a phone, the world's only phone with 14 SIM cards or some virtual SIMs, I don't know. But we've got over our hang up that contact records should represent a person, and we don't think of these as duplicates. So we're going to turn off the standard duplicate detection on names and rely on duplicate detection on something else, perhaps email address or some other factor. So that's what multiple contacts looks like in a Dataverse environment. Next one is connections. gets really messy, and this is why I don't like connections. Elon Musk is the same person as Elon Musk. So these are one Elon Musk record connected to the 13 other Elon Musk records to indicate that he is the same person. That's one way of using connections. It's horrible. The other way of using connections is to have Elon Musk with the role being his role at different organizations. Either way, I don't think it's fantastic. The second way is probably better, but that's not the one I took a screenshot of. Our third option is going to be leads as roles. So this works really well if you don't use lead records as those kind of unqualified sales opportunities, which is we just missed Leon. Leon, I don't know if you're still on the call, but Leon and I were chatting about this. He reckons that the progenitor for the lead table goes back to Sales Logics, where Intuit, whoever owned Sales Logics at the time, it was called Sales Logics.
Interact Commerce.
Interact Commerce. Thank you, Leon. Designed this concept called leads, and that got copied by Salesforce, got copied by Microsoft, got copied by whoever knows what other CRM systems, where we have this table where we can have unqualified records, go through a kind of qualification process, either by the marketing team or the sales team. Those get, once they're qualified, they get converted into better quality records, contact records, account records, sales opportunities. I'm not a big fan of leads used in that way, mostly because they're used as a dumping ground for crap quality data. I prefer just to keep crap quality data out of my CRM system, especially in a business-to-business environment where you're probably selling to a known universe of companies in your industry, right? If you sell to universities, there's only so many universities in Australia, or if you sell to hospitals, there's a known universe of those. If you sell to the public sector, there's only so many government agencies and departments. And you're probably not, you want to try and avoid using leads in business-to-business scenarios. Business-to-consumer scenarios, it might make more sense if you're collecting crap leads from your website, for example, or people are filling in superhero names or Mickey Mouse or really bad data. So I'm not a big fan of using leads. I do like repurposing them for this because they've got lots of the things that we need. A lead table has got job titles, it's got a link to the contact records, it's got a link to accounts and contacts, it's got phone numbers, it's got email addresses. It integrates with Dynamics Customer Journeys, Customer Insights Journeys, and some other CRM systems and other marketing systems. So leads is a really nice repurposing of, or they're using it as a role, as a nice repurposing of the lead table. Some purists would argue that you shouldn't repurpose standard system tables or even some columns in Dataverse. And if you want to use a existing table for a slightly different purpose, you should create a custom table. I'm sympathetic to that point of view, but I think this one's pretty nifty all the same. So what I've done here is we've got a contact record at the top, and I've taken off the contact record, all the stuff that you might normally see on there, job titles, phone numbers, email addresses. So we're boiling the contact record down to the person. These are personal attributes about Elon that are the same regardless of the job or where he's working. So he's got the same, he's only got one birthday. His annual income, thank goodness somebody at Microsoft decided this would be a nice big long currency field. Not many people have an annual income of more than $5.5 billion a year. He's got 10 children. So those are attributes about Elon Musk, the person, that are static regardless of what job he has. And here's all his jobs. So these are all lead records. I've called them employment positions or roles that are linked to Elon Musk. Very similar. In this option, we've used a custom table called roles, and we have created this custom intersect table in between the account entity and the contact account table and the contact table to store all that job information. So very similar to the one before. So if you are that purist, doesn't like to repurpose or can't repurpose the lead table, this might be a good option for you to consider. Another variation on this one is to use the contact table as a business card, and then have a custom parental record called a person record in my example. And here again, I've stored that information that's permanent about Elon, so his height, his weight, his national insurance number, or tax file number, whatever you might call it in New Zealand, his birthday, annual income, number of children, his middle names and stuff. So we're treating the contact record as a business card underneath this custom person record. I didn't create a custom icon for it. I just used the standard jigsaw icon just to show you that it's custom. I think this is the design that Microsoft was tilting towards when they thought about taking a crack at it. Those are the rumors, at least, from some of the conferences I've been at. Nothing ever came of it, but it's interesting that they were considering a person table. So definitely not something we should rule out, and something we should evaluate if you need to solve this problem. The last one I didn't do a screenshot of. I didn't actually set up a demo of. It's this idea of self-referential contacts, where you have a contact record being a parent for other contact records, where you have types like person and contacts. Leon and I worked at the same organization whenever Microsoft Consulting Services deployed Dynamics 365 for sales, and this was the model that they used. I think it was called Contact, was the parental one, and the subsidiary was called a client contact, and it got really confusing really quickly. And it broke the CRM for Outlook app and various other things. So worth considering if there's a reason why you want to go that way. Jared at Factor here he works in Brisbane. They're based in Canberra. He and I had a really good chat about this one. It seemed to suit one of his customers' scenarios really well. I cautioned him to take care because it could blow up. So let's have a look at those in the demo environment. Stop sharing that. Start sharing. Oh, Jared's on. Hey, Jared. Glad I said nice things about you.
Yeah, that's right. I was just waiting for the little jab there.
I didn't tell
we
him
ended
that.
up not using that self-referential.
Oh, is that right?
By the way.
Okay.
Yeah,
I couldn't remember how many beers we had.
Custom role entity.
Yeah. Okay.
There was some interesting designs.
Yeah.
We got more interesting the more beers we had.
So, if you want to ask any questions or see any of this in action a little bit deeper, just you're welcome to come off mute or raise your hand. So this is my Elon Musk. So we've got 15 records because one is the person record, and 14 are representing business cards. So if I open up any of this, I don't think I customized this form at all. This is a fairly standard contact record in a standard Dataverse environment. So one contact linked to one account with distinct email address, phone number, postal address. Any activities or any child records under this Elon Musk will not be visible under any other Elon Musk record unless you do some customization, some kind of custom roll-up to make those activities visible. That is possible. So if you want to use some customization, I think you can customize the timeline and change the query to do some of that funky stuff. But by default, that's not enabled. So that doesn't give us a very holistic picture of Elon Musk. We can't see what's happening with Elon Musk at SpaceX or Tesla or anything else. These are distinct contact records. That might meet your security requirements. Maybe there's a reason why you don't want whoever looks after Elon Musk at Tesla to be able to see what's happening with Elon Musk at SpaceX. Maybe that's a requirement. So this model might work for you. In the same Dataverse environment, we've got the contact records, connection records. And unlike the screenshot I showed you in the presentation a moment ago, here's another variation about how you might use connection records. So here we can see Elon Musk, one of the contacts, and he is connected to all the other organizations or accounts. And in the connection, if I open up the connection rules, you'll see what the relationship looks like. I haven't opened this form before, so it's just warming up. But you can see I can describe the relationship. I can have dates on the relationship. I would agree with the people who think that the connection user interface is not a great design. It is a little clunky. Users can get lost pretty quickly, but it works pretty well for this scenario. So I can have start dates and end dates and a description. So that's pretty good. You know, if I want to describe somebody's job, connections could work there. You just don't get some of the other stuff like the activity rollups or opportunity rollups or case rollups or some of those things that you might see. But not a bad option. As you might have discovered yourselves, when you go to use a restricted Dynamics 365 table in Dataverse, you need a couple of things. You need a Dynamics 365 license. I think is the Power Platform Administrator. You might need a Dynamics license. You also need to remember to check the box that says, yes, I want Dataverse, and yes, I'm going to deploy Dynamics apps into this Dataverse environment. If you forget that second checkbox, you're stuffed. You can never deploy Dynamics apps into that Dataverse environment, which is what happened to me. So whenever I wanted to repurpose the lead entity, I had to go and deploy a new Dataverse environment. I haven't merged them all together. So I'm hopping over here into a distinct environment, different from the other two that we've seen and different from the other two that we're going to see in a second. So I've had one customer that came to bite them on the bum when they deployed a custom Power App and then wanted to use cases. Can't just add Dynamics 365 customer service into that Dataverse environment. Here, we've got the lead record hiding underneath the contact record. So I've displayed the associated grid here. If I open up the lead record, you might recognize it. I don't think I've customized the form. Is that please? I quite like this because it all the relationships are there. And like I said, some of the integrations you might need with customer insights journeys or your third-party marketing apps seem to, on the face of it, will be preserved and will work. Other things that work quite nicely as well, like activity rollups, and I think notes today can roll up as well. There was a limitation there for a while. So that gets us, I think, a long way down the road if you want to get to this single view of a person. That's the lead. Then we've got the contact roles. So this is where we've got a custom table called a role table. And like I said, this is probably a bit more like the LinkedIn data model. I don't know what LinkedIn looks like behind the scenes, but it's obviously not Dataverse. And here we can see a relationship to the contact, relationship to the account, and then some distinct information about Elon's job at this account. So he's the co-founder. There's his email address. There's his business phone, mobile number. Downside of this is this will not synchronize with Outlook, with a CRM app for Outlook. May be able to customize that. I think that would be quite challenging. So you also probably don't get activity rollups and opportunity and case rollups. You probably don't get an easy integration with your marketing application. But there might be a reason why you prefer this option over the repurposing of the leads. If nothing else, you might just be George Dubinsky and hate relabeling tables.
Hey Neil, just so you're aware, I've got a hand up. You probably can't see because you're presenting. Got Danny.
I cannot see a hand up. Thanks, Jared. Whoever's got a hand up, you're welcome to jump in.
Yes, thank you, Neil. I was wondering if you preferred us to wait until you were checking for the questions. I'm happy to wait until you finish with all the scenarios.
All right, sure. Let's just cover off the last one.
Yeah.
And I've just got a couple of wrap-up slides, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions. The last one then is Elon Musk, the parent. So we've got a parental person records, custom table. It looks a little bit like the other forms as we saw a moment ago. We customized the contact table, but here we're using the contact table as the intersect entity. So Elon Musk, the person, has a role. His role is Elon Musk, the co-founder of Neuralink, and this is a contact record. So quite elegant, quite simple. A lot to like about this one. We probably need to do some additional custom development or configuration work to get some of those roll-ups of activities or opportunities and cases and child records up to the person records. So we get that more holistic view of the person. But I don't think any of that is beyond a decent development team. If you've got some budget in order to do that. Nice thing about it, it preserves the standard use of the contact table. So if you have any integrations that rely on the standard pattern of contacts representing business cards, then your ERP integrations, your Dynamics Customer Insights integrations all will continue to work. You might need to do some additional integration to get the person record over there in quite a similar way to how Customer Insights unifies profiles. That's effectively what we're doing here. I've seen some organizations struggle with being able to identify with sufficient certainty that two contacts are actually the same person. So we might have a father and son with the same name, living at the same address, and be unsure as to whether that is a single person or it's a father and son. So you might have to go down to the date of birth or some other identifying factors. Email addresses are pretty poor identification factors. Even phone numbers can be shared by people, particularly landline numbers. I know some people share mobile numbers. I know people who, husbands and wives, who share email addresses. So you want to use a more distinct identifier like a tax file number, social security number, date of birth. Even you might have a father and son who share the same, well, not date of birth, but same birthday. So it gets a little tricky. But if you're able to do that, then you can unify. Depends on the, in financial services, in government, you probably need a very high degree of certainty before you can link two contacts together and say that's the same person. Other places it might be easier. All right, let's just flick back to the slides for a second. If we need to come back to the demo, I'm happy to do that in just a moment. So we'll go back into here and just wrap up. So love to know what your preferences are. We looked at multiple contacts, very standard out of the box scenario. If you treat contacts as business cards, we looked at connections, two different styles of connections, connecting people together or connecting a person to, or connecting accounts to contacts, leads as roles, custom roles as roles, using the person as a parental record with the contact record being the intersect entity, and self-referential contacts. That's all the content. I'd love to debate some of those options with you. I think Danny's got something to say. Jared, I'd love to know how yours worked out as well. If anybody else wants to chime in, this has been a pretty lively debate when we've presented this at other places. I'm sure Kiwi's got plenty to say as well. Thank you to the sponsors of the New Zealand Business Application Summit 2023, to DXC Technology, to Explologics, Microsoft, and Fusion 5 for making this happen. Of course, to the organization committee as well, without whom none of this would happen. I've been Neil Benson. You're welcome to follow some of my content. I've got a podcast called The Amazing Apps Show, YouTube channel. You're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me there if you aren't already. And if you want to find out any more about my online training courses, where we talk more about agile practices and Scrum in particular, you're welcome to visit Customer Academy. There's free and paid training courses on there. I'd love to connect. Danny, I think you wanted to dive in first. I can see Leon's got his hand up as well. Let me know how I can help or what you'd like to contribute.
Yeah, thank you. It's such a, I mean, especially in larger implementation, right? It's such a common scenario. And we always struggle with kind of the best way of managing contacts. And the biggest challenge I always have is the email addresses and how that works with Outlook, because a lot of clients are still using the Outlook client, right? So, yeah. So synchronizing the email addresses, how to make it work so that even from Dynamics and the timeline, you can send an email and select the right email address. So actually working right now with a client on experimenting on being able to choose on the email that you send, on be able to choose the email address on the contact field. So we're experimenting with that. It's not live yet. So that's kind of another way of, so that's always the challenge I have. And some of those solutions that you're having, I think there like connections, you cannot store additional emails.
Nope.
Even the roles, I think, if I understood correctly, the role is just it's the role that you have, but you don't have the email address or the phone number of that person working under that role. Is that?
Yeah. So on the role example, we can have,
could you go back to your slide, with the 6 examples?
So this is the one with the custom roles. So we do have an email address is a custom email field on the custom role table.
Yeah.
The downside of that is that because it's a custom table and a custom field, it's not available in CRM for Outlook, so the tracking won't work.
Yeah.
It's not available in marketing applications, so you won't be able to do email marketing using this email address unless you customize the synchronization there. So that's definitely a downside. It's a slight advantage of using leads because leads may track in the CRM app for Outlook. They may synchronize to your marketing application, and it's probably a stronger, if that's a dead set requirement for you, you might want to go for this custom person table because then the contact record can have an email address and you can have multiple contact records for Elon's different jobs and all different email addresses.
Yeah, and here the person is actually sitting on top of all the contacts you have.
That's right.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
I've seen other clients like the one you're describing where they add the email address 2 and email address 3 to the contact record, which is there, like they're standard fields in the data model, but you can't easily switch them. Like you said, when you go to do CRM for Outlook app or marketing, you have to do some clever things with plugins to switch a secondary email into the email address 1 field, and that just gets really messy. I've seen that done, but it's fraught with difficulty.
Thank you.
Leon, how are you doing?
There you go. I'll just take the hand down. I'm doing excellent. Thank you. And thank you. Awesome presentation. And as a callback to my presentation, great use of humor and props throughout the slides and with the goggles and the lab coat. Fantastic.
Well, I always said you'd be a hard act to follow, and unfortunately the schedule worked out that way.
Yeah, no, you've done good. With the whole sales logic thing, I posit that this whole account contact thing also comes from that sales logics model.
Right.
So because the grey hairs give it away. There was Oracle CRM at the time, and I don't know about Siebel. I think Siebel had the same problem. I think that was account contact one to many, but Oracle solved the problem. Oracle had a many to many, and still
SAP
does.
does too.
Yeah. But because their primary competitor, and this is how I know, because I was on the beta training and they had this spreadsheet of these are the other CRMs that we're competing against, and there was one column in their competitor list, which was SalesLogix, right? Not Salesforce, SalesLogix. That was the only competitor they had eyes on when they created 1.0 beta. I'd love to ask Niraj exactly this question. Did you just lift the SalesLogix data model? And now we're inheriting the sins of the father kind of thing. But yeah, I posit it was the account contact one as well. Danny mentioned what I was also going to mention, which is the email addresses is tricky, right? If you're using stuff like connections, email address is broken, kind of multiple that's broken. And that's having an email address generally is sort of a minimum you need to contact a contact. But it's tricky, right? And we jelly wrestled this when we were on that university project way back when.
Yes.
With at least 3 of these options. I think we looked at 3. I didn't think we looked at all 6, so it's fantastic to see them all.
Oh yeah, I've forgotten we had a bake off there as well. I remember,
that's right. Yeah.
I can't remember which side were you on, but I remember the product owner favored your design over mine. So there you go. I remember that.
Yes, but we did that, right? And we had 3 of the 6. But yeah, there was and I can't remember which model actually won in the end. I know connections are involved, but but no, it's interesting. So yes, it's a hard problem, and I don't know how these are the ways to resolve it, but they're not. No, they all have positives and negatives. None of them are the one true answer. But thank you, great presentation.
Yeah, so those big ugly enterprise applications, SAP and Oracle, have at least I know at SAP. I think they're called parties, and a party can be a person or a company, and then you can have all sorts of relationships between parties, and they solve it that way. It's still quite complex under the hood. I think finance and operations got a similar kind of data model to that as well. I couldn't swear to that. I'd love to know how modern CRM applications, these emerging ones like HubSpot and Pipedrive, and I'd love to know how they solve it. I've never taken a look at their data model to see if they've managed to throw off the baggage of the sales logics and evolve a completely separate data model and solve this in novel ways. I might take a look at those. Yeah, Jared, how are you doing? What did you decide to go with for your scenario in the end?
Hey Neil, yeah. So yeah, we were looking, or was toying with that idea of that self-referential contact. So like the parent contact is the person, and the child contact is like the business cards of that person.
Yep.
Yeah, we steered away from that. We did some POCs. I think it works well in theory, but I think you need to do a lot of custom work just to show the right contacts at the right place. When you want someone to pick the person, you need to hide all the child records. When you want someone to pick the contextual child contacts, you need to hide all the parents. And there's all these little ways people can get in to find those things when you don't want them to. So I think the concept, just from like a change management user adoption kind of view, it can be confusing for users. Like they scratch their head, a little bit more cognitive effort. What does it mean again if it's a child contact? And so either really poor user experience or a lot of heavy customization, custom pages and things just to hide that stuff, I think. So that's why we steered away from that in the end. We ended up going with the custom table for a role intersect table between contacts and accounts, and that just came down to our requirements. That's not going to work for everyone, and the main thing there is if you want to use like that contextual link between the person and the account in things like marketing lists or event registrations, when you want to automatically find the person, you just can't do it. But we didn't have that need. We did check with the stakeholders, so that was kind of the simplest approach for us that met the need, and so we went with that one. I think it is just a trade-off, right? And I think the strongest options you've had, I think, are that custom role table. I think the leads is a really interesting one. You wouldn't use that if you need to use leads in other out of the box things. Or if you're using like the sales leads and opportunities and so on, you'd probably steer away from that. It's probably a small risk of Microsoft clobbering your changes if they make some changes to leads. True. But the way you're using it, probably not a huge risk. You're probably just adding a lookup and a couple extra fields and forms and things. That's probably pretty safe.
Yep.
And I think the personality can be interesting as well, depending on your requirements. I think the weaknesses of that one is you couldn't use the person record in, again, like marketing lists and so on. So if you need if you want to build a marketing list, you have to pick from 13 Elon Musk's. Choose one of those randomly to add to your marketing list instead of one person record, which would be a downside. And then you'd have cases where you have a contact or a person that you just want it in the system that doesn't have a role or an association with an account. And if you want to use that in the marketing list, then you're probably stuck as well. But I think it just comes down to your requirements, and they're all trade-offs.
You brought a couple of
great
points there.
Thank you very much.
Around the training and change management. I know some organizations that won't change the standard labels of accounts and contacts because they know all the documentation available on Microsoft Learn uses those names, and it's easier to change the internal names and have users adopt Microsoft's lingo. Sure, whether that's a great idea or not. But if you do want to use some creative designs, then you've got a training and change piece as well. And then the other thing is about the requirements. You're absolutely right. We have to pick the appropriate design for the requirements in front of us. But these are fundamental design decisions. And if the requirements change in a couple of years, like if your customer wanted to add event management into their workload, then your data model you chose years ago may not support it very easily. So your fantastic design at the time can become somebody else's technical debt in the future. But I guess that's always true.
I'll be gone by then.
That's right.
That's terrible. Stop it.
Anybody else? Any thoughts, questions, favorites? I'd love to hear your feedback.
Well, for me, my favorite is the custom role table. Well, that's probably because that's how the data model was structured in my last project at the previous employer.
Yep.
So I joined the project midway, and the design pattern is already as a custom role, and probably they chose it because there's no need for marketing to send it out, and also there's no Outlook integration use. So
Yeah.
I think that's a decision. And their also email address and phone numbers are also a bit quite interesting. Also postal codes. So they have all these contact informations as a separate custom child table.
Yep.
So they have for the main contact, they have, let's say, like 4 phone numbers, and in that role you have to select from the lookup
Okay.
which phone, or no, filter based on the contact. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that design of one-to-many between contacts and phone numbers in other CRM systems. Dynamics kind of has it, or Dataverse kind of has it with addresses. There's
Yeah.
3 sets of addresses on the contact record, and there's a customer address table kind of lurking in the background underneath. That could be really useful, but unfortunately it can't be extended. So that pattern almost exists. Yeah, but I've never tried creating custom email tables and using that, but I could see how that would work, because then you can extend the metadata that you know about that email address. Like, did it bounce? When did it last get delivered? Is it personal or business? Is it, all these attributes about the email address could be stored quite easily in that table. Whereas today you'd have to hack around and add a set of all those attributes onto the contract record for each email address. That'd be ugly.
I wonder if the new consent management tracks emails somewhere. Might be interesting to do some digging.
Yeah, I haven't.
By contact point, like email address or phone number.
Yep, I haven't dug into that. That's a good point, Jared. That they've had to enhance their own data model to manage consent in a more modern way, where people want to say, yes, use this email address for these purposes, and this other email address for those purposes. Yeah, I know. Internally at Microsoft, they must have dozens of Neil Benson records with dozens of different email addresses, and not know what my actual consent looks like. It's a bit of a mess, I'm sure. I'm sure it is in many organizations. One little habit I've got into when I've been sending marketing emails, for example, to customer students, is letting them know which email address I'm sending the email to, so that if they're using an alias or anything, they've given me an alias, then they know which alias they've given me, because it arrives in a unified mailbox. Just some marketing practices like that can help people manage their consent in a better way as well. So if I get 2 or 3 copies of an email address from the factor, then I know that this one was sent to neil@customer.com. That's the one I can go on and unsubscribe from and retain my subscription to neil.benson@customer.com, because they've told me in that email which email address it was sent to. Great stuff. Okay, Lynn, I think we'll wrap it up there. If there's no other questions, I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes if there are, but I appreciate we've got a 50-minute session here today, and we're back to back all afternoon with New Zealand Business Applications Summit. So, Lynn, back to you.
One last question in the chat. Really serious question. Say Hux, where can I find this goggle?
Where can you find the goggles? The goggles and the waistcoat, and there's a jacket to go with it. I picked up in an op shop, like a secondhand store, just prior to a photo shoot I was doing for Customary earlier in the year. Complete fluke. I was looking for a kind of a mad scientist or nutty professor kind of outfit, and these goggles turned up. They're amazing. I love them. Talking about making things available, though, I'm considering trying to package up the customizations I've done and maybe this presentation and putting it on GitHub. If that's something that you would find useful to explore and accelerate your proof of concepts with your with your customers, let me know, and I'll see if I can find some time to make that happen. If that would be helpful. Can't promise you a set of goggles. So. Was there anybody else, Lynn, that had a question?
No, just one comment about the option 4, custom role table. With a custom email address field, you can enable for activity tracking in the Outlook app. And the caveat is that when you want to create a new record for Outlook app, you can't select your custom role table as an option.
Yeah, very true. Thanks, Amor. Good point. So yeah, you have to know your requirements pretty well before you select one of these designs, and they are pretty far-reaching, long-lasting design decisions. So worth spending some time to get it right. On a big an agile approach, you can just break things and change it, but not this way.
Okay, thank you very much, Neil, for presentation, for showing us half a dozen ways how to manage the Elon Musk problem. We'll probably have a 7-minute break before we can start Danny's session. Yeah.
More to that. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, Neil.
Catch you in the next session.